The Toncoin CEO and founder was arrested in France. He's been accused of not doing enough to prevent criminal activity from being organised on his platform. So we're talking about terrorism, drug trafficking, fraud, things like that.
Rate cut's coming. So September 18th is the next key date. And obviously we've seen the markets absolutely rip higher. Now the real question is, how deep are they going to go?
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Tapping into Crypto. My name's Ted and I'm joined with the great man Pav. And Pav, you've got a new haircut. You're looking very good today.
Yeah, we're not doing this. You got a haircut too.
Yeah,
Mate, you've got
but
more than a haircut. You've got a whole new wardrobe.
I did get a whole new wardrobe. Thanks for pointing it out.
Bitcoin's up a good cheeky 20% and you're out splashing cash on Hastings Street, hey?
Yeah, look, I've always said you won't know I've cashed out big on crypto, but there'll be signs.
All right,
and today's one of the signs.
Okay, well, all right.
But you got a haircut just for this episode.
Well, it's more than that, but yes. Just general life maintenance, yes.
You've still got hairs on your collar, so mate, it's
look.
I respect.
I'm just dedicated to the job.
And that's it.
Well, at least that's what I'm going to say.
Mate, I love the tenacity. It's fantastic to see.
I love this just angle that you've got this morning. It's perfect. Oh. What are we doing?
I think we're doing a crypto podcast.
Well, it doesn't sound like it. Everyone's sitting there waiting, wondering what's going on, and you're here talking about my haircut.
Yeah, well, I just think it looks really good.
Damn, he's out of order, isn't he?
Boring.
Yeah, boring. Exactly. We've got the director's signal. Move on.
No, that's all right. But look, a bit of not super quiet. I think the biggest...
It's been anything but quiet.
Yeah, the biggest story this week is obviously Tron and the ecosystem there happening
I think
with...
there's bigger news than that.
Yeah, I mean, there's things happening, but I like to focus on the meme coins. I know you're a bit different.
Well, that's not true.
We will dive into the Tron ecosystem later and why Tron's had such a huge week.
Yeah, it's a big story.
But firstly, we will cover off on where we sort of are on the market. Pav, you're going to touch on some macro as you like to do.
Yeah,
kick us off.
Fair bit happening. So I'll try and breeze through as much as I can. So there was a pretty important meeting at the end of last week, which I think you had in your notes as well, but I'll just touch on it briefly and you can jump into it. But essentially a meeting last week with like we've always talked about on the podcast, like a big part of the crypto cycle starting to really heave and hoe is interest rates coming down. And the whole world's kind of in a state of mourning, understanding how high rates have been for so long compared to the past. Well, the US policymakers, Jerome Powell being the main head honcho, mentioned at a Jackson Hole symposium, which is just like an economic forum, that there are rate cuts coming. So he danced around it, but basically, long and short, rate cuts coming. So September 18th is the next key date. And obviously, we've seen the markets absolutely rip higher.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is people pricing in, well, the rate cut's coming. Now the real question is, how deep are they going to go?
Yeah.
So it could be 0.25 or 25 basis points or 0.5. The market consensus is for the deeper one. So the only thing I'd sort of caution is that maybe there isn't that deeper cut coming and everyone's pricing in potentially more of a cut than what actually lands. So that could cause a bit of volatility. Heading into September, which we know sort of precedes that Q4 era, which we know historically has been the time when the markets have hit a trending environment. So
Bull City.
So it could be a few bumps along the way, but it seems like everything's going on track, right? And I just wanted to point out, I guess, even from a macro perspective, if we look at the impact that the US dollar can have, this is a chart. Come check us out on YouTube as well, by the way, those of you listening along at home. But this is a chart of the US dollar index, which basically measures the strength of the US dollar compared to other foreign exchange currencies and Bitcoin. And categorically, whenever the US dollar has been in a downtrend, like we currently are starting to see really ramping up and accelerate right now, that's when we started to see on-risk assets like crypto have a trend higher. So we saw the same trend towards the back end of 2023. So the same thing, I guess we look back to previous cycles just after the halving. This time is different because we have had the US dollar put in, I guess, relatively far more strength with the whole COVID outbreak, rates going higher. The US dollar has soared. So kind of sets up an interesting tone in sense of what can we expect this cycle. Because, I mean, really, we've never had the US dollar stretched up this high for, a decade or so. So for me, it's exciting. Does it mean we just have absolute rocket fuel to send the markets higher than what we used to? I'd love that to be what happens, but time will tell. Mm-hmm. But the other thing we can talk about also is the ETFs. So the BlackRock and Fidelity, and we had the who's that one? Bitwise. The Bitwise products, they all put in massive days last week as well to finish up. So 253, which is almost double the average daily inflows. Starting off a bit soft this week, which is understandable because we jumped to a chart of Bitcoin. We had broken out of this current range that we'd been in since that dip where we had that yen rate increase and everything sort of blew up economically for a little bit. But we've just seen Bitcoin continue to rally. So from the lows, right on the screws, we're up about 30% toe to tail. And we're doing a nice sort of retest, in my opinion, of this previous range here. So I still think things could get volatile and maybe a bit sidewaysy as we head into that interest rate meeting. But just to finish up, we're trying to talk about some levels that we might be interested in. There's a little tool that I like to use called the VWAP, or the volume weighted average price. This basically takes all the trading since the start of the quarter, because we're approaching the end of the quarter, and gives you a banding of where some potential support and resistance. So we can see this is respected a lot of these trend lines pretty frequently. Most recently, we hit this upper banding of 65K. The mean or middle right now is sitting at 60K. So we could potentially, I think, come down there, and that could act as an area of support. And then areas higher that I'm looking at is this 2 and 3 standard deviation, which is 69 and 73K US dollars. So still a bit to happen. We'll see what happens.
Yep.
But I think if we've seen anything from quarterly closes in the past, we get quite a bit of volatility and even sharp pullbacks. So just expect anything, I would say, for the next month. And that's my long-winded answer of where I think we are right now.
Nice. I like that indicator.
Honestly.
I hadn't heard of it, the VWAP.
VWAP, yeah, pretty standard one.
Can you just go back to the ETF inflows? I just want to check out how ETH's performing.
Still a bit stagnant, but I think on Friday it also benefited from the tailwinds of the Jackson Hole Symposium. Nah, it wasn't a good one. So, well, better than usual, but nothing too much.
So while Bitcoin's had about 6 or 7 days of net inflows, ETH's done the exact opposite, and we've seen about 6 or 7 days of net outflows.
Yeah, but the takeaway there, the grayscale product, it's still taken the foot off the gas in terms of how fast they're selling. So that's still
following a very similar trend to how the grayscale Bitcoin product was selling off. So
this is it right here. Live feed,
almost mirroring each other.
Yeah, but that's it from me, to be honest. I think this week, if we want to talk about what should we be watching for volatility, we do have GDP data coming in on Thursday. I personally think now the conversation on inflation's done, can put it to bed. Cool. The moves, I think, will now come off the back of jobs data and growth data, so GDP reads.
Yep.
And also, there's another thing called ISM PMI, so the Purchasing Manager Index survey. So talk about how strong is the services and manufacturing industry. I think they'll be potentially a bit more influential on price now. So
nice. That's
what I'll be watching.
Man, I'm loving to hear that. No more talk about inflation.
No, it's done.
So
it's all over.
I'm going to hold you to that.
That's fine. You've been talking about it more than I have lately.
Yeah, but I've had
That's all I hear.
I've done my time.
Back of my desk. It's just it's inflation on the phone all day.
Just love the word.
Yeah.
Just a buzzword. But look, I wanted to touch on a little bit of where Bitcoin is, more focusing in on the crypto market rather than the macro market as a whole.
Yep.
If you bring up this chart I've got here, it shows where we are compared to previous cycles. I know we've looked at this before, but this is a little bit of a different take on it. So usually it's from the halving we look at, but this actually goes from cycle lows. So the cycle lows was probably started 2023.
December 22?
Yeah, end of 22,
Yeah.
where Bitcoin hit about 15K, 14K USD. So really dropped off after that FTX saga that played out. But look, if you compare it to sort of the previous cycles where we saw in 2021 and then also in 2017 and around then, it's following a very similar trajectory. Obviously, we had the pump following the ETF approvals where we saw all-time highs, and then it's come down a little bit then.
Yep.
But that's sort of following a similar trend to previous cycles. And then as you see where we are now, this point in previous cycles, it sort of rallied really hard, particularly in that
600 to 700 day range.
Yeah, exactly. So that's good to see, because it could mean that we're due for a bit of a pump. I mean, maybe we're a month off. We talk about Q4 being sort of that quarter that performs the best. Yeah. But it's good to see that they're sort of we're on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, if Q4 is when we expect trending, you got to put the bottom in before that. So
that's it.
I dare say it happens in the next month. Yeah.
Yep. And another thing I want to pull up is stablecoin volumes. So stablecoins, we know people use them to trade often on exchanges, like a lot of exchanges around the world. Swyftx, we're lucky enough where you can deposit AUD and trade with AUD, but most exchanges it's all about trading stablecoins, and often people will keep stablecoins on the sideline for when there's a good time to invest. They'll have stablecoins ready to go to trade.
Even those issuers, USDC, USDT, they're minting new stablecoins when there's demand, right? So this going up means there's more interest.
Yeah, exactly. So the last time we saw like highs, I think these are like 2-year highs. The last time we saw it was May 15, 22. So just as the market was sort of coming down, or maybe even before that. So yeah, pretty much the peak of the bull market 21. So it shows that there's a lot of demand for stablecoins, which typically means there's a lot of demand for trading crypto. So that's another thing that we'd like to look at as well. So that's trending in the right direction.
Yeah, it's good to see. All things are pointing north. It's looking good.
Yep, absolutely. And let's dive into some top movers. There's a lot of green today, which is good to see.
Yep.
I think before we touch on all the green, let's touch on the red. And there's two sort of clear red coins there.
Interesting times, eh?
Very interesting. And you'll see that they are Toncoin and Notcoin. Obviously, Notcoin is part of the Toncoin ecosystem. The open network is what it stands for.
Yep.
And you've probably likely already heard the news, but the Toncoin CEO and founder was arrested in France. And basically, he's been accused of not doing enough to prevent criminal activity from being organized on his platform. So we're talking about terrorism, drug trafficking, fraud, things like that. The whole thing about Telegram is it's an encrypted messaging app. So essentially, some people might use WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. This is something where you can basically, it's encrypted, so you don't have to worry about someone else seeing your texts or your messages. But in doing so, he's been arrested and could face up to 20 years in jail. So bit of a big story there. And as we know, Toncoin is heavily integrated with the Telegram ecosystem. The guy, I only found this out today, the Toncoin founder, or one of the Toncoin founders, is actually the older brother of the Telegram founder who's just been arrested.
Right.
So I think that's why they're so closely correlated.
Okay.
But as a result, Toncoin did tumble, 20% in the space of a couple of hours as the news broke.
Yep.
And then Notcoin, which is like a idle clicker game on the Toncoin network, that is also down because that's also in the top 100 cryptos.
Interesting times, because I know we've both talked about, if we want to bring people into the space, they need to use it in a way that's familiar to them. We always kind of said, well, Toncoin fundamentally sounds like that's how you get lots of active users very quickly.
Yeah.
But not so much maybe anymore. Who knows? I think this one will be interesting to see how the market responds.
Yeah, exactly. It recovered a little bit, but I think people are waiting to see like how sort of things play out with the court case and everything, because if he does end up going to jail, and what's the future of Toncoin look like does someone else take it over and completely change its approach, and then it's no longer popular? Like, we don't know these things. I would be looking at it like, often people say buy the dip, things like that. This is one that you probably want to sit on the sidelines and wait to see play out.
It's not the same, but it's almost like, well, we all saw Luna dropping and dipping once upon a time ago too. I know this is a completely different scenario, but you just want to be just careful and aware of what you're doing. Yeah.
Obviously, Toncoin has other things going for it other than just the Telegram integration. Correct. So you got to keep that in mind as well.
Absolutely. But let's talk about some movers. I know we've got a massive bids there from the AI scene. So that's very reminiscent of what we're used to seeing. Every time the market's at broken high, it was always meme coins and AI and a little bit of infrastructure too. So seeing Render, seeing FET, and Old Faithful PopCat there too. You're saying I'm not into my meme coins, mate? That was probably my best performer over the weekend as well.
Yeah, sorry, that was a big insult. You took that to heart.
I really did. But that's okay.
Yeah, look, PopCat, best performing meme coin. We're also seeing Whiff and Bonk in there, so Solana dog meme coins. If you go to the top, this is showing the top 100 coins. If you go to 100 to 200, we'll see some really big green bubbles because... As we mentioned before, the Tron network is having its time. It's having its 15 minutes of fame, isn't it? So Sun is up 186% this week. And then what else are we seeing? There was another one in there called
just dipped off.
Sundog must have dipped off.
Yeah, it was a meme coin.
200.
Yeah.
But for anyone that doesn't know, we'll do a bit of a deep dive into the Tron ecosystem, because I think we've focused a lot on ETH and particularly Solana this year. Haven't really touched on the Tron network too much. So want to give a little bit of insight into that, because it's actually a huge player in this space and just hasn't really, had much of a narrative around it recently. I guess why we haven't really touched on it. But look, Tron overtook Ethereum and Solana in daily revenue last week, and it's largely due to their sun.pump app, which is like a meme coin generator where people can generate meme coins, largely based off what we saw on Solana, which was pump.fun, right?
Yep, correct.
And I think the whole Sun thing comes from their founder,
Justin Sun.
Yeah, Justin Sun, who's sort of a significant figure in crypto and has been for some time. But Tron's been around for a long time, so it's not one of these newer sort of layer one networks. It's done bits, and it's sort of remained relevant for a long time. So it's an interesting one to look at. So after Sun.pump launched, there was over $2 million in revenue generated from it, and over 30,000 meme coins created in like a week.
Yeah, because I'll say this just happened in a blink of an eye. Like I saw it on the weekend, but I wasn't paying close enough attention.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy how these narratives sort of shift, and they go so quickly. Hey, and often it's like already too late. Once you get a hold of it. But Tron's trending in the right direction in a lot of metrics. We look at on-chain metrics and can try and compare like some of these layer one networks like Solana, Ethereum, Near Protocol, Sui. Have I missed out? I'm sure
there's a heap of them.
Yeah, there's a heap. But look, Tron's looking really good as we're looking at a chart here. Stablecoin or global circulating supply of stablecoins is really strong. It's actually at the strongest out of all the layer ones. And as you can see, it's trending upwards. Also, TVL is trending upwards, and Tron actually has the second highest TVL, so total value locked on its network behind Ethereum. So it's actually sitting above Solana, despite all the success Solana has had recently. And then lastly, fee generation. So obviously revenue is often made through fees on these networks. There's other things that revenue is generated through from, but the fees makes up a large proportion of that. And fees generated on Tron, as we're looking at this chart here, is just going up and to the right, and it's a good looking chart. If you're into your charts, which I know you are, Pav, like this is a good looking one. This is all based off the exchanges, and it's sitting at around, what are we at?
43 million?
Yeah, 43. Yeah. So it's looking good.
Yeah.
So there's obviously other metrics, but we'll keep it like kind of simple at this stage.
I think there's a good fundamental analysis piece that we've got on Swyftx Learn. It kind of touches on all these things that we're looking at, so you can kind of do your own due diligence on assets as well. But seeing these core metrics moving in a certain direction, with community engagement, with volumes, with stablecoins increasing, it's what we saw when the Solana ecosystem had a bit of a run. So I don't know if this is going to be the same. Obviously, completely different group of people, but I think it's goes to show that people are watching, people are looking for things to trade.
We often see these things run when like meme coins on these networks go hard. Obviously, like this is the case for this one. We saw it with Solana. Solana overtook Ethereum in a number of metrics when the likes of WIF and Bonk and other meme coins were gaining a lot of popularity and notoriety even. So that's I guess like meme coins are driving a lot of fundamentals these days, which is interesting. But just another one to keep an eye on. Like I don't own any Tron myself. TRX is their token. But it's always good to get perspective on these things.
Good chat, dude. This is an interesting one. I'll let you sort of run the lead on this, because I didn't actually know about this one until you showed me. But the SEC has rejected a filing for a Solana ETF, which is interesting because I know we spoke about it I think like a year ago with Bitcoin ETFs going live. Like we're going to see Ethereum, likely see Solana or another basket of like other top running assets. What can you tell us about this one?
I mean we've touched on it a little bit, I think, about Solana ETFs sort of being the next one off the shelf. And 21 shares in VanEck, so two pretty prominent asset managers filed for Solana ETFs in the US through the CBOE exchange. But they were actually removed off the CBOE website, and people were speculating, what's going on here? I think, have they been rejected? It's come out that yes, the SEC did reject these applications, largely in part because they're still presumed Solana to be a security, and they're going after the likes of Binance and I believe Coinbase still for listing unregistered securities, and Solana being one of those. Might have removed it actually. I'll need to double check that. But essentially, these got rejected. So it's not all bad. Like they can can still be amended, but it sort of kicks the can down the road for these being approved. So
Yeah.
we likely won't see approval anytime this year. But look, what they'll likely do is amend them, try and argue that they are not securities. I guess a strong argument there is the fact that XRP won their, or Ripple won their case against the SEC, and then also Ethereum was approved for an ETF, which is a very similar sort of network to Solana. So I guess you could make a strong case there, but it just sort of means that these guys will have to go away, amend the applications, then it takes time for it to be approved. So you're likely looking at,
sometime next year after that even.
Yeah, even like 12 months minimum at this point. Yeah. So unfortunately not, but we saw a Solana ETF in Brazil being approved.
They got
so
approved.
That's a good sign that countries, the world is bigger than just the US. It's happens to be the largest market, so that's why we focus on it so much. But we do like to look outside the US sometimes.
Must be definitely a situation of devil in the detail, because I know when the Ethereum ETF went live, I know a lot of those SEC chasing certain layer ones just went stagnant.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're still unresolved. They've just been deprioritized. So until that air gets cleared, I guess a lot of these other deemed security assets will not be able to get too much further.
What if we see another sort of application come through out of nowhere, like a meme coin application?
I was going to just say meme coin is the one thing, because it is, from my understanding, by definition, it can't be deemed a security.
Yeah.
So it's the clearest one. So maybe that's the one that happens first. I don't know. I'm just saying, it'd be weird.
This was a couple of months ago, but Jim Cramer actually asked Gary Gensler about a bonk ETF.
A bonk ETF.
And Gary Gensler didn't really reference bonk at all, but Jim Cramer did make the point of these can't really be considered securities. So can you imagine? Bonk ETF. I hold a little bit of bonk, so I would definitely not be disappointed in that.
Neither. No, I would be pretty chuffed.
Yes, absolutely. But look, we might leave it there for today. Keep it pretty short. We'll be back next week. We've got an interesting interview with Zeneca, who's from the NFT community, should all things go ahead. So make sure to check that out. NFTs is something that we haven't touched on in a while, so it'll be good to get sort of that expert opinion on it, on where that market's sitting at.
Hasn't even started really anyone looking at it, right? So you got to expect that it's happened every other cycle.
Exactly, and I think most people think back to NFTs just being the Bored Apes and the crypto punks and the JPEGs.
Be interesting to see the evolution this time around.
So getting that expert opinion on here is going to be really juicy.
No, that's good.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, guys. See you next week.
Thanks very much. Bye.